Good morning from Silicon Valley. This is Marco Marinucci with another Mind the Chat. And today we're going to talk about sustainability with Giovanni Tula, Head of Sustainability at Enel Green Power.
Hi, everyone.
Giovanni.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you are.
Exactly. So as you were mentioning, you are probably in Europe, right? So you're sitting in Milan, correct?
That's right. I'm sitting in Milan. It's almost late evening now. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's another morning in Silicon Valley, finally with no smoke out there. And speaking of smoke, we actually today, the topic of today is really the impact of sustainability in general, and in particular also with your role within one of the major provider of renewable energy in the world. So we're going to talk about that and a little bit of your vision of where the the market is going as well, in a topic that is becoming more and more visible overall. So it's less of a technicality as it should be, and more as something that is impacting everybody. Speaking of fire and climate change, right? So Giovanni, let's start from your background. You are a Sardinia native, if I remember correctly. So the island of all the centenaries. What else? What happened to your life?
That's correct. I mean, my background is in environmental engineering. I spent almost all my life around topics like environment, safety, sustainability, innovation for various industries. I started in engineering and construction company, designing remediation sites for site remediation plants, and then I moved to the aluminum sector, the steel sector, and now I'm in global power, in power generation, and I'm leading the sustainability of Enel Global Power Generation business line. Yeah, I'm sitting in Milan. I live here, and I'm enjoying, Italy.
Although you used to travel quite a bit, and let's talk about your world of reference, Enel. We have the pleasure of having different speakers from Enel, including your CEO, not too long ago, and so we're going to make some connection to that initial inspiring chat that we had. But so Enel, just to set the stage, Enel is the world's largest player in renewables by installed capacity. So maybe give us some number about Enel as a group.
Yeah, Enel is present in more than 30 countries. It's a power utilities present in 5 continents. It's probably the first network operator by end users, 73 million of end user. And as you said, the world's largest operator or private operator in renewables, 46 gigawatt of installed capacity. And we have one of the largest retail customer base for electricity worldwide, 71 million. We are organized by global business lines, and the one that I belong to is the Global Power Generation.
And tell us what's inside the Global Power Generation, because again, this has been a continuous reorganization. Sometimes it's renaming, but what's inside today the Global Power Generation? Well,
it's an interesting story that we are starting now to write, because basically the Global Power Generation business line integrates a renewable capacity with the thermal generation assets. It was created to support and to accelerate the decarbonization process. Because the decarbonization for the utility can be seen from 2 different perspectives. On the one end, the phase out of the coal power plants in order to reduce the CO2 emissions. But on the other end, there is also a strong push on the renewable deployment. And that's why that combining the 2 forces, we can avoid losing opportunities during this journey. And you can imagine that in this framework, with a huge change in front of us, the role of sustainability is crucial, because we need to ensure that this energy transition will be a fair transition, where nobody will be left behind. I'm referring to our employees, to contractors, to suppliers, to communities, all the people that they are going to be changed by the shutdown of the plant, and there is a huge value in this transition, but we believe that we have to share this value also with our stakeholders.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the definition of sustainability. What is sustainability within Enel as a group? You already mentioned that obviously is also part of what you're selling, your core business. But I would like to understand a little bit better in a complex structure that you have. How are you structuring internally to address all the sustainability related topics in terms of at the corporate level and maybe also at the business unit level?
Yeah, Yeah, thanks. That's this question opens me, leave me the possibility to say that Enel, in my view, is equipped with a business model that promotes really the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Goals. Let's start from the organization standpoint. It all starts from the board of directors. The board of directors that are, of course, responsible for approving the strategic plan and the financial plans, but they are also in charge of promoting sustainable business models, as well as to approve the sustainability report. Then the chief executive officers and general manager that you have interviewed, not longer ago, is responsible for defining and implementing the sustainable models and also for managing the energy transition. So, the top managers of the company, they are fully engaged with sustainability. And then there is the innovation and sustainability functions that we call innovability, that reports directly to the CEO and manages all activity from the perspective of sustainability. And there are various levels at the holding unit level where they play a role of guidance and coordination, but also global business line and country where we are focused more on the execution of the plans. But regardless of the organization, I think the most important thing of our model is that sustainability is fully embedded in the business. At all levels of the organization, people are engaged in sustainability, from strategy to finance to the underlying operational. We are all committed and engaged in doing our part to improve the sustainability of our business. Just a couple of examples. For instance, for the development of a plant, the business development, the construction, and the operation, all of them, they apply sustainable models based on sustainable practices. Our decommissioning of the plants is really focused now on circular economy. We apply standardized tools to listen to stakeholders. We work a lot with procurement and suppliers. And this is because we believe that only embedding the sustainability within the business, we can be credible, and then we can extract all the values that we find there is behind a sustainable business model.
So to make it practical, tell us how do you do in your daily job? What is your role within the group as a head of sustainability? How you spend your time?
Yeah, sorry, just maybe you can hear better.
Yes.
Basically, we are working a lot now in the so-called energy transition. That's why in the daily job, we are trying to identify models that can make this transition more sustainable. So I'm leading a team that is working on engaging all our suppliers, the contractors, to push them to supply products that are manufactured or with the more sustainable practices. Because one of the goals that we have is not only to generate renewable energies, but we want to generate sustainable energy. In order to do that, we definitely need to have all the supply chain on board on this journey, because the electricity that we supply to our customers is made of a lot of pieces. We are working on our own premises, in our own operation, we do the construction, the operation, but our suppliers also, they play an important role. So we work a lot with them. And we work a lot also with our customers, because we want to differentiate a little bit our product. We know that electricity is a commodity, but we believe that renewable is no longer enough. We need to be sustainable. We need to provide electricity that is sustainable since the raw material extraction up to the dismantling of the power plant. And that's part of my job. What I'm inspiring people inside the company, I'm providing them with tools in order to improve their operations. I'm providing, for instance, at the moment, I'm working with the engineering team in order to give them a tool that they can identify what are basically the impact of their design solutions, and also through these tools to improve, since the early stage, the final output of the plant.
So that's fascinating. Give us maybe an example of a conversation that we had with one of your suppliers that eventually led to a change of their way of operating, or a different focus of the way they're operating, to be able to to operate with you with your sustainability standard.
Yeah, Basically, we see the suppliers more as a partner, than suppliers on this topic. On the one hand, we set clear expectations of what we want from sustainability standpoint, and we are transforming sustainability in a competitive factor, because in our tenders we define some sustainable key factors that give basically a sustainable advantage, competitive advantage to those that are more sustainable than others. So on the one hand, we work with them in order to push those that are not still already sustainable toward this direction. On the other end, we consider them as a partner. So we work with them, for instance, to identify innovative solutions for huge topics like the recycling of the blades of the wind turbines, for instance. So we work together and we try to, first of all, to align the objectives, at least in the medium long term. And the other end, we try to work together to identify technical solutions for this. And that's why, I mean, on this regard, innovation and sustainability, they go hand in hand. So
do you give scores? And that's very example that you gave. So the recycling of the blades of a windmill. So do you have your own internal scoring system? How different providers can rank?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we have a scoring system in general for the qualification of the contractor suppliers, the provider. And then we have, that's just to, to qualify contractors. I mean, if you want to work with Enel, you have to achieve certain standards. And that's basically, let's say, requirements that they have to comply with. On the other end, we are, setting higher standards, saying, okay, if you go higher, you can provide me more, I can give you more points, and then I can give you, a better discount or a better position in the tender, And that's the advantage and that we provide to our more sustainable customers. Regarding the blade recycling, unfortunately, today, there is not yet a solution for that, and we are working with them in order to identify future solutions to avoid landfilling of the blades that at the moment they are. But it's a huge, I mean, it's a very interesting challenge at this one. It's one of the 2 or 3 challenges for renewables. The other one is for solar, is to how to, mitigate the impact of the soil occupation, the land use, because solar plants, I mean, especially utility scale, they occupy a very huge space. And we are working a lot to develop some business model with the agrivoltaic, we call it, in order to agrivoltaic models in which we put together PV panels and agriculture. And there are certain interesting opportunities for the future.
Yeah, that's actually another fascinating area, right? So what happens to agriculture when solar panels are, taking over large areas of land? And we've seen that we're actually, supporting some of this experimentation for yourself as well. So very fascinating. All right.
Well, so if I can just comment on this, because it is true that the solar plants will occupy a lot of land, but on the other end, it's not so huge as people can imagine, or we can imagine. If you can make I mean, especially also in country very crowded like Italy, they occupy a very small space compared to the whole nation. What I'm saying is that we are really supporting this type of solution because they can be a barrier for the growth of renewables. But on the other hand, we think that the benefit that we can get from those plants that do not emit or release CO2 during operation are much higher than the impacts that we are trying in any case to mitigate.
So far we've been talking about sustainability at as a wider term, but I want to maybe would you go a little bit deeper in how you divide the different areas of sustainability. I remember on again your CEO Francesco Starace also addressing in your strategic plan for the current years, sustainability as a core value in general, you reinforced it, and then going a little bit deeper in also the commitment to the and the association with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDG. So maybe can you give us a little bit more of a color? How you do this mapping? Because I'm sure that's a kind of a complicated process to have, right? And to be able to define what is the impact of each of the SDG and how you map it internally.
Yeah. When I think that when our CEO mentioned the sustainability's value, he refers to many things, from the value of the company, the enterprise value, up to the or down to the underlying operations. I mean, if you look at the enterprise value, you know, a sustainable company, we realize that a sustainable company can have a better cash flow, can lower the cost of the debt, can lower the overall risk in general, no? And since we have focused our capital allocation on renewables to become, as you said, the world leader in renewables with 46 gigawatt of installed capacity, what we have noticed is that the market cap of the Enel almost doubled, or more than doubled, actually, before the COVID, you know, problem. But also those companies like Enel have adopted a sustainable model. They are also, you know, are more resilient to the crisis like the COVID one. And it's a type of, you know, a value that the embracing the sustainable model can bring to the company. Especially, this is also supported by the social responsible, you know, investors that also in the, if you look at the capital of the share in Enel, they hold almost 11% of the total share, and also 43% of the Enel investors have signed the UN principle for responsible investment. You know, that's basically the type of value that embracing a sustainable model can bring from a financial standpoint. But there are also other types of value that you mentioned, and this basically one is the lower the risk at all levels. You know, if we adopt a sustainable model, we have a lower risk or no acceptance on the territories where we operate of our plants. You know that, as I said before, we occupy space, we occupy land, and then a sustainable company has a higher likelihood to be better accepted by communities and institutions, and this won't be a risk for the growth of the business. We think that there is a value almost everywhere in adopting sustainable business, you know, and especially when you try to adopt the so-called approach, creating shared value. That means basically making business by solving social issues. You know, combining the two things, it generates a lot of value, especially in the medium, and long term.
So, but back to the mapping with the SDGs. Do you have your internal scoreboard where you actually track the different SDGs that are where you have an impact, and you and your role try to maximize the outcome?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, consider that 95% of the capex are strictly related to 4 SDGs: the number 7, the number 9, 11, and 13. Of course,
can you help us remind what those SDGs are?
Yeah, the 7 is affordable and clean energy. The 9 is about the infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure. The 11, sustainable city. And 13 is about the climate actions. You know, you can imagine that for a global power generation business like us, the most important one is the 13. You know, the one related to the climate actions. And but coming back to your question, we have, of course, we are mapping. We have specific tools in order to track, you know, the progresses towards the sustainable goals and the commitments we have taken. Because in addition to those 4 SDGs, we have an impact on many others. We have taken commitment also in other, like the quality educations or the decent work in the area we operate. And we have, in certain cases, we have already achieved the goals, and we have redefined the new goals. I mean, because probably we were, when we set the first goals, it was 2014, if I will remember. We were a little bit conservative, probably, and now we are extending, we are increasing, you know, the targets that we have, and basically we are focusing and we are following the evolution of those SDGs very closely. Yeah.
One easy one that is a core of your business is the amount of renewable energy compared to your total capacity, which is, again, you know, part of the part of the business that you're in, that is Enel Green Power. So I think the target that you shared publicly is to have at least 60% of that, so renewable capacity in 2 years, in 2022. At what level are you today? So just also to understand, being one of the major providers, as we mentioned, of a renewable capacity.
Yeah, we are very good position. I mean, in 2019 was a key year in relation to the decarbonization strategy. We have with the construction of over 3,000 megawatt of renewable capacity. We continued with the coal power plant decommissioning, and for the first time in 2019, the renewable sources surpassed the output from thermal generation. So now we are 50-50 in terms of capacity and also generation. They are there, or they were there, because this year we are going to be in a much better position because we are continuing with the shutdown of the coal plants. And so the 60% by 2022 will be achieved without any problem. But it is much more than that, because in the end, I think that to the environment, it doesn't matter really how much is the share among renewables and thermal generation. It matters much more what are the emissions of CO2. And we have set a very challenging target for 2030, where we expected to cut the CO2 emission by 70% compared to 2017. So, and to achieve a specific emission of 125 grams per kilowatt hours. Today we are at 300 grams per kilowatt hours, around that number, but we cut it by 55% in the last 3 years. So, I think we are in a good position to achieve this target. But by the way, the other interesting thing that I want to mention here is this target is not self-referential, because it's, this new target is basically being certified by the Science-Based Target Initiative, that is the worldwide reference for essentially the target of the company toward the ambition of the Paris Agreement, And this target, basically, they certified that is in line with the scenario of the well below 2 degrees Celsius temperature increase. So, it's something that is in line with what the states and in general, the market is expecting from a company like Enel.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a second. We have a question here from Carol that says, how is sustainability connected with pollution cleansing?
What's that, cleansing? Probably, I'm sorry, but...
No, just the support of pollution, cleaning of pollution, right? So the addressing of pollution. Yeah,
basically, the sustainability is setting targets and is seeing opportunities, and especially for the both environmental and social aspects. Regarding environmental, basically, on the one hand, again, within our company, we have the same approach that we are using with our suppliers. We set requirements, and then we set targets, and in order to go beyond the requirements, and that's part of our job. The sustainability is what is doing within the company.
So, you guys, as Enel, have been committed to sustainability at the core for a good amount of time, but it feels to me that the whole sustainability movement and visibility is definitely increased in the last few years, literally in the last handful of years, and honestly, even more through the pandemic. I think the perception and the sense of urgency has, if anything, increased. We had this very conversation with your CEO, with Starace, not too long ago, and some of that I think is definitely also driven by regulations and I think a sense that of the major policymakers being more driven by measurable results, especially in the approach to climate change. And the European Green Deal is definitely just the beginning of that strong force that will impact down the line entire markets and have impact on GDPs of countries at the end of the day, because every implementation at the local level then will have to show results. But the question for you is what do you think are today the major market forces in support of sustainability? I can mention just a few of them. Maybe we can go and touch upon those. Financial markets is definitely something that is relatively new. You already mentioned that returns are better if you're covering SDG objectives, policymakers, regulations, business opportunities. So give us a sense of what you think are the major driver of this acceleration finally.
Yeah, you basically mentioned the major forces that I agree with you. I would start with another one, that is the retail market. I mean, I think the climate change matters for retail customers. Probably thanks also to Greta Thunberg, but not only. But they are starting to be more engaged on this topic, and that's why corporations are more and more taking care of the climate issue by decarbonizing their power supply. Probably there is an association, the RE100. That is the Global Corporate Renewable Energy Initiative that bring together all the, not all, but hundreds of large and ambitious business committed to 100% of renewables. And this is a clear sign that those corporations, they believe that their own retail customer, they are interested in receiving products that are manufactured with no CO2 emissions, with a low carbon emission. And that's, one of the force. The other one that you mentioned is the financial forces. I mentioned before what's the value of the market capitalization of a company if a company embrace a sustainable business. But there are also some financial products that can help the company to reduce the cost of the debt. One is are the bonds. That there are some. There are various types of bonds. There are plain vanilla bonds that are those that just no matter about for sustainability, they only focus on the on the economics of the company. Then, if you want to invest in some companies that are not fully sustainable, but they have some projects that are fully sustainable, like for instance for a wind farm, then you can have a green bond, because the green bond focuses on specific project, and maybe you can invest on that project, and that your money will go to finance that project.
You guys actually launched green bonds a few years ago. They were extremely
a few years ago. Yeah, we launched green bonds 3 years ago, if I remember, and but that's very limiting. It's just very specific. Last year, we did something more. We launched a new product that is called SDG-linked bond, which is basically focused on the sustainable business model, the sustainable strategy that we have adopted. Basically, this bond links the premium, the return for the investor to our ability to achieve the decarbonization process, basically to achieve the target in renewable capacity that we want to install from the launch of the bond to 2021, or the reduction of the CO2 emissions. Basically, the investor, if we will be able to maintain our promises, to achieve those targets, the investor will get less return, but he gets a premium if he won't be able to achieve the target, which works in a opposite way that normal bonds or financial products work. And was very well appreciated by the market, because basically they are supporting a not fully sustainable company to speed up the transition to sustainability. And I think we were the first one to launch this bond, but there are other companies that now are doing the same. And that's clear that the sign that the market is appreciating this type of approach.
And how do you call those bonds? Because to me, my understanding is that there is more accountability in the impact of SDGs rather than just a generic, idea of green. How do you call today those bonds? Are still called as a kind of a
Sustainable Development Goal bonds?
SDG bond.
Yeah, exactly. And there are, but there is accountability, and there are clear KPIs to be achieved by a certain, deadline. There is another force. Can I just elaborate on that?
Sure,
because
please.
You mentioned before, the differences in regulations, maybe between Europe, and maybe we can come back to that later.
I was about to talk about the differences in obviously the different geographies are approaching, having different pace in that direction. Please elaborate. I'm interested actually in particular, obviously US and Europe, that is evident for everybody, but maybe also China, if you can put China in the mix just at a high level, that would be interesting.
Sure. I'm not an expert of China because we are not present there, but just to mention that there are, of course, differences among the different geographic areas. As you mentioned before, in EU, the European Commission set very strong challenges for the decarbonization, for the carbon emission, and they are about to announce, or they already announced in the last days, an increase in target from 40% reduction to 55% reduction. So it's very driven by the regulation. In the US, as far as I know, there is no a very strong position at the country level. There are more target at state level, right? But and in China is a strange. It's totally different, because they are the country that are investing the most probably in renewable. So, but they are also still investing in coal. So they are still doing both, because they probably need to satisfy their need of energy. Right. But if you look at the investment at the capex distribution worldwide, China is the #1 country. But what is interesting, I mean, that's what I was about to say before, is that regardless of the type of the regulation or the differences that you can find from Europe, China, and the United States, basically what we are seeing is that in all the areas we are experiencing an incredible growth of renewables. They are having an incredible success, and the coal generation is shrinking. Also in the United States, where there are no coal plants in construction phase now, except probably some small or minor plants. But in general, what is happening is that basically renewables are now more competitive than coal. In many markets, they are more competitive of the existing power plants. In certain markets, they are also already more competitive than, in many markets are more competitive of the new power plant, and some of them are also more competitive than existing power plant. That means that there is a substitution effort that is going on. And that's basically driven by due to the fact that the renewables are really, really competitive. They experience an incredible technical evolution, reduction of costs. A PV panel costs 85% less than 10 years ago, and a wind turbine 50% less. So, I mean, there are forces, but at the same time, what is really making the success of renewables is their competitiveness.
Yeah, this is a practicality. It makes better business sense. So you don't have to convince really, otherwise. And obviously, in some markets, the sense of, business drive is stronger than other. US is definitely one of those. Yes, as you said, I mean, here, I mean, this is a wide range of potential strategies. California is definitely obviously more on the aggressive side of the history there. Before he finished his term, Governor Jerry Brown, and we remember 2 years ago in 2018, issued the SB 100, that is a bill to the target carbon neutrality as a state. This is the fifth economy in the world. Neutrality by 2045, with the 60% of renewables by 2030, so in 10 years from now. That at a state level is very aggressive. So it's definitely there are forces that are obviously, as you mentioned, also driven by really business perspective. All right, so we're at the end of our conversation. I don't know if you want to measure some give some idea of success stories that you guys drove, or in general, how you measure your success internally in terms of, you mentioned different areas of measurability of your KPIs, but maybe just one example.
Yeah. In general, we measure our success through KPIs, as you said. I mean, we are, as all the other companies, in sustainability. I mean, we mentioned already the renewable the capacity and the share of the renewable capacity and versus thermal one. We measure also our success in sustainability by the number of, or the quality of the ESG ratings that we achieved. That Enel is basically probably, in a very good position. This is improving year by year the position in the majority of the ESG ratings. We are AAA for the first time in the MSCI ESG research, CDP Climate A list, the Bloomberg Gender Equality, Global 100 ranking in Corporate Knights, Sustainability Jones Index, and then FTSE for Good, and so on. I mean, there are a lot. And that's a signal that basically ESG rating are appreciating what I said before, the sustainability really embedded and integrated into the business. But if you want from me a success story, I want to maybe bring here a couple of examples. The first is probably the mother of the success story, is the story of Enel Green Power. If you have 3 minutes, I can tell you that when Enel spun off Enel Green Power, the renewable business in 2008, this move was really ahead of time. At that time, all the companies, including Enel, they were focusing more on the nuclear. They talked about nuclear renaissance. The coal was the main business. And just only a few visionary people saw that the future was renewable, And those people also within Enel, and one was the CEO, our CEO that you interviewed times ago, they bet on this success of the renewable, and they started this small business that our innovability officer, Nestor Chora, calls startup. It wasn't actually a startup, but the journey was like a startup. And at that time, we were able just to install a few megawatts plant. It was a great success. So a few hundred megawatts per year was a real huge results. While now we are installing thousands of megawatts, basically from a little company. Enel Green Power grew to global players, and now he's taking over, the generation in Enel. So
I think it's telling that Starace, the current CEO, was the CEO of Enel Green Power, yes. And so that's natural progression. I think is now paying off, definitely.
Yeah, and it's it's very important. The vision of being about the future, and since the beginning, it was clear that the not sustainable businesses. They would have struggled a lot, to survive in future. And the other example, and I'm close with this, is about just let's call it lower level. It's not talking about strategy. We are talking about how we work with communities. We have adopted the so-called creative share value approach. It basically means to sharing values with the community that are surrounding our plants. And one of the major forces or advantage of this methodology is that it forces us to listen into the communities, to listen into them. And after many years of this approach, what happened at almost a little bit more than 1 year ago, we went to the United Nations, the Human Rights Forum of the United Nations, and we brought some of the people that work around our communities. Those people are indigenous people, to talk about how native communities, they live, they are linked with natural resources, those that we use to generate electricity. And what happened that those people, they basically recognized that our approach was so respectful of their connection with local, connection with local resources, of the people time, we get them involved, and in other words, we create empathy and trust. And I believe that this is part of the today's success of Enel Green Power, because these allow us to basically to grow and not facing a major barrier to the growth.
Well, this is, I think, a perfect ending of also for the beginning of a long week for us. So, Giovanni, we appreciate your input and keep up with good work. So hopefully we'll see you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marco, for hosting me here. It's a pleasure.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.